Hello, guys. This is the return of ASMR Diesel, and this is the Then and Now podcast, here for another point of interest video. Today, we have the usual crew, Lelouch V and King of the Comics, but today, we have a very special guest. We previously, 5 minutes ago, just had him on our live show, Mr. AJ Hooks, animator extraordinaire. How you doing, brother?
Hey, appreciate having me back on here. I got to be back.
Today, guys, we are going over the topic of pacing. Writer savant, King of the Comics, Professor E, please do our audience a favor and kind of give them a brief summary of what pacing is in terms of film, writing, etc.
Of course. So, pacing more or less is like the speed at which the plot moves and can be determined by the speed of camera shots, length of dialogue, and movement. It's essentially getting from important beat to important beat in the movie or show.
And Mr. Lelouch V, would you kind of give the audience just your opinion of what makes a good paced film, show, etc.? We can start with film because I know pacing is a little bit different when it comes to the show.
Well, I mean, when it comes to a good film, the pacing of it can be depending on a lot of things. Of course, your genre does have a bit to play in that. I mean, if you're making an action movie, you probably don't want to have the same pacing as you would for a ballet film, right? Like, it's a little bit different. But I mean, if we're speaking on action specifically, I mean, you want to have like a good hooker at the beginning to get someone's interest. But if you got to be able to find a way to mix the story information that your audience is receiving with the actual action that keeps their interest maintained. So I mean, again, as all of these POIs come down to, it's all about nuance at the end of the day. Like trying to force a formula is usually going to hurt your product when it comes to anything. Now I'll pass it over to AJ. What are you thinking on pacing?
Oh, my thoughts on pacing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah,
how noticeable is pacing for you?
Oh, noticeable. Actually, I was talking about pacing the other day with I believe it was my mom and my brother Will. We were watching The Last of Us because what happened was honestly, I think they're doing a good job of the show overall. I mean, there's some stuff I've okay, I probably changed or tweak this here and there, but I know the most recent episode, I was noticing with the pacing, with the whole, I don't know if anybody's familiar with the show or anything with the episodes they've been doing, but for example, if you played the video game, you probably know about the winter season or whatever. I'm okay, I love this part. I would have loved for that to have been a little more stretched out versus how they did it in the episode.
I didn't think they were going to get it into one episode. I didn't mean to cut you off, but yeah, I didn't think they were going to split it in half like that. I thought we were going to see a little bit more of the journey there from that we saw from the game. But yeah, go back to you, H. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're good. No, I agree 100% on that. It's with the actually towards the end of the episodes more so where it was a little more the beginning of the episode was okay, I can do it. This is okay. But like you said, towards the end of the episode, I was looking. It was actually the scene. I don't know if it's a spoiler or not.
We'll put a spoiler alert for it because that episode just dropped last week. So yeah.
For people that don't want to get this episode spoiled, let's just say jump ahead 30 seconds into the episode. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So yeah, just jump in, y'all. He just the scene when Joel is fighting one of the bandit dudes or whatever. When he gets impaled with the baseball bat. I feel like that scene could have been a little stretch out, them exploring that whole area a little bit more. Of course, you don't want all the instances from the video game because I know they're trying to tweak the pacing to where it's not drawn out like you're watching someone play a video game. But something like that is it was such a very climatic moment, and I feel like it kind of lost a lot of its impact because of how abrupt it was. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing with storytelling. When you do things a little too quickly in terms of pacing, you can pretty much fumble the anticipation towards that actual thing.
Yeah. So pacing is very. I'm glad both you guys brought up essentially shows or TV shows essentially or series. It's a different thing, especially also adaptations. If you're adapting a video game to a different medium like TV, and you have something like HBO where those episodes oftentimes last more than an hour. That's a lot of content. The pacing can be very different if it comes down to a singular film and you're in a singular genre, like Otis mentioned, action, for example. I remember in film school, they said that Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark was one of the best paced films of all time because an action sequence happened every 12 minutes or every 12 pages. I know oftentimes when it comes to comedy, they want you to have like a joke written like every, I forget the exact amount of the exact word count or so, but they want you to have like a joke like 5 or 6 jokes per page essentially that land at some on some level. So pacing can be depending on the genre and the medium is different. It's like Otis mentioned, it's nuanced, but you want to make sure, like Otis also mentioned, quoting Otis a lot here, that it engages with the audience and it keeps them wanting more. You don't lose them. You don't put them to sleep unless it's a sleep genre.
And I will say, just to get into kind of a more in-depth dive when it comes to a slow versus fast-paced thing, obviously some people prefer one or the other. I think there is definitely a difference between using every, like if it's slow-paced, you obviously want to make sure that you're using every single moment that you're expounding upon within that thing. Something like Game of Thrones comes to mind in that series, where the scenes are usually a little bit longer, the shots a little bit longer, but they're meaningful and usually have something of subliminal in conversation or in the scene, and that thing can be a big thing in the plot later on. Something we talked about with Chekhov's gun in the previous episode, where you don't want to waste a moment. Versus with something like a fast-paced show, it's a little bit more difficult. You have to make sure that you don't overcram things into that fast-paced thing just to get things done. Do you guys have like I guess we'll go back to AJ. Do you have like a preference on something being fast-paced or slower-paced for you, or do you kind of just?
Oh yeah, like me personally, like I'm pretty patient, honestly, regards to like storytelling. Like I can stick with a show. Like I can give you some time to like get your footing with it. Like you don't have to be like off the gate, high impact action scenes and all that stuff like that. Like if it's a slow burn, I can deal with that too. But it's like, yeah, it really just matters. Like you said, it really just matters how you're handling it too. I feel like personally, like
that's interesting, AJ, because you are as we've established, you are a third of my age on a good day, and younger people tend to have, no offense, much shorter attention spans.
You are so right.
But if you go back and watch older movies, they have no problem taking their time getting from point A to point B. My protege was out here; he was 20 years old, and getting him to watch anything longer than a minute is a chore. So it's I agree, a good slow burn can be very, very effective. And most audiences these days of younger generations cannot handle that.
Oh yeah, it's like I noticed that like even in engagement, like in videos, even like when you post a video, like if it's younger people watching it and like you can tell by like the engagement or whatever, like it'll just dip after like maybe like 12 seconds.
Like 12 seconds.
Yeah, it's like it could be like a high action packed scene. Like most of them won't even really stay past like 7 to 12 seconds. They're like, okay, what's the next thing? Really, it's just like honestly, I feel like social media definitely is to blame in terms of like people's attention span with that. Honestly, because like everything is geared towards getting everything fast. Like you get Uber Eats fast, you get your jokes fast through a meme. Like the meme is just like picture punchline. That's my fast joke. Like TV shows like so like when I was growing up anyway, I'm used to like stuff you can like have like a funny ass joke. Like I don't know if I can say that. I don't know, but
say it.
Okay,
say it.
I don't know.
Say it.
Yeah, I know some people. You get. Anyways, back to what I was saying. Like some people. What did I get with that? Yeah, it's like. Damn, that's my point. But
that's right. That's right. It's not
live. It's the Ethan effect. I blame that on him.
Yeah,
you should. To kind of caveat off of what everyone.
I was getting so passionate with it, I was lost in words.
It's okay. It's okay.
But,
we get there.
Oh no, but yeah, that's just how it is. Like people want everything so quick, and then just kind of. I'm just used to like back when my day, like I can like sit, wait for like something like. Oh, now I remember what I was about to say. Yeah, I can sit, watch a show. If there's like a joke kind of being built up throughout the whole show, I can patiently kind of sit with it if I know what the payoff's going to be. But like most of the people in this day and age, they ain't gonna do that.
They will not. Otis, you had a caveat?
It's a try to caveat to that. Well, everyone was saying, I think one word that I really put synonymously with pacing is efficiency. Like, making sure that when you are like, doing a slower pace, like what you were saying earlier, Charlie, like all those scenes count, like they're important. They have to be meaningful. And when you get to the action, it is built up properly, and it's a payoff towards what you built up within that slower tempo. Whereas the opposite is also true. Like if you have a faster paced show, like your levity has to come from those slower moments, and in those slower moments, you have to make all the action sequences like have meaning. Like you have to, like, it's like it can't just be like random explosions. You have to be like, okay, why did we have these explosions? Where are we getting? Where are we building up to? And why are we making these things happen? If you don't get that why consistently, you're gonna have audiences kind of like, okay, so exactly asking that, why did this happen?
And that's something not to get too outside of baseball, a friend, or inside baseball, friend of the show, Cito, last night a buddy of ours, his catchphrase is basically, but why? When he reads something or watches something, but why? If it doesn't make sense to him. But anyways, yeah, I agree. Efficiency is prime. You want to make sure that everything happens for a reason. One thing I haven't seen all of Naruto. I've seen like a couple hundred episodes, but one of my favorite moments in anime is the Kakashi versus Obito fight, because the fight itself is built up for a while, but then the fight itself is paced during that like 9 minute, or however that fight is, Otis. But that fight, they're telling a story with beats in the fight as well, with flashbacks and stuff. So it's storytelling within storytelling. Having that kind of being able to spin that many plates is highly efficient, and it's not done that well. I know obviously slow burns are great. We all love slow burns, but sometimes slow burns will lose their footing along the way. Being able to pace something quickly, but everything still matters is hard to do. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, Kings. Okay, y'all in here cooking today. I see you came to pod for real. In doing all that, guys, could you give the audience, for people that may not be the biggest film connoisseur, just maybe a pop cultural example of something that's badly paced to start with, and then we'll go to good pace.
I can get that.
Yeah, so you unleashed the beast.
All right,
so I mean, there's bad pacing in both directions. I mean, like when you if you're looking for bad pacing in a fast paced something, the first thing I would go to would be like God of High School. That's an anime that came out last year, where they crammed so much story into 12 episodes it doesn't even make sense. Like they wanted to get to a certain part within the show within the first season, and you can really tell where they were trying to get to, but in the process they skipped over a lot of the information that makes you feel connected to those characters. So like you kind of just like, oh, it's pretty, but like it doesn't feel like anything substance wise. Or on the other end, let me think of something that was horribly slowly paced. Ghost in the Shell. So like with how they set up things within that show, like the action sequences are what kind of draws people's attention into it. But when they start getting into the breakdowns of like how the technology works, or how the motive of a particular perp that they're after works, that's when you can kind of get lost in the sauce there. Like you can just be like, all right, it's cool knowing that he's a psychopath that wanted to use this cyber hack that doesn't exist yet to take over all these machines, but like this information is borderline useless to me because the technology doesn't exist yet. So why are you explaining it? So yeah, like there's definitely hard parallels to both of them, but yeah, you can get extreme and too slow paced, and you can get extreme and too fast paced very easily.
All right, AJ, you have an example for us?
Oh, an example of bad pacing.
Mm-hmm.
I ain't gonna lie. For me, it'd have to be Boruto.
Oh, the anime or the manga?
Oh, the anime.
Let's go ahead and mute Otis now, because it'll be another 40-minute episode if we let him go.
Like, I tried to give it, like, I tried, y'all. I tried. But then, like, I get so many people like, you gotta, like, it's like, wait until you get to episode like 50 or 60. Like, if a show takes up to 50 episodes for me to finally get engaged with it, is it really that good in terms of pacing, or just a good show? Like, if it takes me 50 episodes, like,
question.
Like, if it takes you 20 years to finish a single anime, is that anime really that good?
You firing shots. You firing shots. Everybody.
We can only take so much smoke. My lungs aren't that strong. I know you're a smoker. I am not that, sir.
No, One Piece. You know how big the One Piece posse is, guy. Hey,
Professor E, give us an example, Professor E, please.
So this is something, and I'm going to go ahead and try. So Otis and Charlie, I'm not going to mute y'all, but try your best not to say anything. Just let me say it,
All right,
and we'll move on. I know that I enjoy Chainsaw Man. I know you two do not, but one of the reasons you guys do not, I understand and appreciate, is because of the adaptation. The pacing felt off from how it was in the manga. And I know Otis before was really hyped for the season finale because he thought the season finale would actually be, spoiler alert for Chainsaw Man, would be where Katana Man appears and where a lot of the team gets off by him or by his the gun, what's it called, the gun group, whatever. Essentially, yeah. And that didn't happen. It kind of got there faster than Otis and probably Charlie wanted and some other fans wanted. And because the pace was a bit faster, it was a turnoff for them. I get that. I understand that.
And I will say, I think to that point, that more so is due to the fact that we've read the manga beforehand. Sure. I think if you were somebody that didn't know what was going to happen beforehand, you wouldn't have an issue with it. Our issue is that there is like content that was breezed through that probably meant a lot more. Mine was more so like a lot of little stuff like sound design, but that's part of it. Sure. So for people that are fans of that, that's why.
Yeah, and we're not here to
talk about it.
We're not here to throw blows or throw hands. Otis, Charlie, and I have thrown hands about this several times already, so we're not gonna do it again. But another thing I will mention is I'm not sure if AJ Hooks, our guest here, is a fan of horror films or is influenced by horror films. Horror films are prime examples of how to do pacing well and how doing pacing poorly can really make them suffer. Done. One of our favorite movies, Otis' favorite movies, is Sinister.
I love horror films.
What makes that? And AJ likes horror films too. Have you seen Sinister yet, AJ?
Oh, Sinister. Oh yeah, I saw that. That was with Ethan Hawke, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Ethan Hawke. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
I love that movie.
Yeah. But what made that work so well is it was one is called micro pacing, which is in each scene, each moment, they took their time to build up with the anticipation, going toward with tension, getting the shock value to work. And then also with macro pacing, each video he watched, spoilers for that, each video he watched got essentially creepier and darker and made him fall deeper into it. It was pacing the overall doom of
perfect build up.
It's build up, overall build up. So it's a fine example of micro and macro pacing. One last example before Charlie brings it up, because I know he's a huge Tarantino fan. One of my favorite scenes of all time is at the beginning of Inglourious Bastards. Spoiler alert for that movie. There's the tension happens where Christoph Waltz's character, what's his name, Charlie?
Oh my God. Oh my God.
He got an Oscar. Man got an Oscar. But he walks into this cabin where this small family is, and us, the audience, we do not know exactly what's going to happen. We know he's a Nazi and things would probably get bad. We don't know how or what's going to unfold.
Hans Lander is what it was.
Hans Lander. The scene, Charlie, the scene lasts 20 minutes. It's a 20-minute. It's not. It seems short, but it's a 20-minute. It's a full episode of a cartoon. 20-minute scene of him talking to a guy about milk and his daughters and everything else, and it ends with gunfire shooting a whole bunch of people underneath the floorboards. And here's the thing: it works. You are not bored. You are engaged the entire time. It's fantastic. So when you do pacing, when you pace something well, it's not to be fast. As Otis said, as long as it's efficient, we're on board.
And my last example, since I'm glad you brought up Tarantino, I had to get into the GOAT.
Here we go.
My favorite movie. One of my favorite scenes from my favorite movie of all time, being Django Unchained. There is a scene in which they are gathered around a dinner table and they just sign over a deal. Everybody's happy somewhat, and you're just gonna ride out the rest of the movie. Yeah. And through subtle eye contact, you start to see that certain characters are noticing that things aren't right. And then that transitions into, it's like all the same scene, but you transition into a conversation from Steven's character, Samuel Jackson, into Leo's character, Mr. Candy. Yeah. And when they come back out, you already immediately get suspense being built up because they know something's wrong now, and you're just waiting to see what's going to happen. And through subtle conversation, Leo DiCaprio goes on this big monologue, and from a similar, again, as you can tell, it's a Tarantino movie because in a similar fashion, they have this 5 to 10 minute conversation about a random slave or just how things operate, and then it breaks into the action, and then that's almost like a climactic point of the movie damn near where everything just goes crazy. So I think that's one of the places, like obviously Tarantino isn't the perfect writer and director, but that's one of the things he shines at, from my opinion, that's consistent in his films, those slow build up moments that have that explosion at the end, and sometimes maybe not the explosion, it's a dud, and you just feel fatigued because you're so on edge, and when You get that climax, you're like, oh man, okay, now it's over with.
Yeah. It is. I'm sorry, AJ, you would say something.
Oh no, I was just listening.
Oh, my bad. I mean, but it is a fine. You're right, Dev. It is Charlie. It is a fine art being able to stretch the tension like that. Well, there are plenty of imitators that try to do what Tarantino does as far as having people talk and pontificate off their ass. It doesn't work. It has to be, again, like Otis said, efficient. You have to be engaged with what's happening. For example, having an interesting story take place, or having it where you see something unfolding slowly, but you don't know what it actually is. Doing that properly requires a deft hand, and it's a skill that's learned over time, so to speak. One last reference I'll make for James Bond fans: one of my favorite scenes that has really good pacing is the introduction of Raul Silva, played by Javier Bardem. In Skyfall, this one take, one long shot. I see AJ down his head. There's one long take where he actually comes down an elevator and he slowly walks towards James Bond. It is one shot, and he tells a story about rats. And the story about rats actually is highly pertinent to the scene, to the characters, but it works very well. It's similar to a Tarantino scene, but it's paced. Even though it might seem like a slow burn, it's highly efficient. So it's all about how you the nuance you use with your craft, so to speak.
All right. Well, guys, this has been a really dope topic. AJ, thank you again for being a guest on our show for the second time now.
Oh, I appreciate it. It was fun.
Guys, again, this has been another POI. Thank you guys for your support. We hope you continue support. If you are interested in a particular topic or a particular subject matter or medium that you want us to cover within these POIs, just drop it in the comments below, and we will try our best to get to that very quickly. Again, this has been C Diesel, Lelouch V, King of the Comics, and AJ Hooks of the Then and Now podcast. Thank you. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.